All right, so it was Friday around, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the afternoon when I went up to pick up some packages that Amazon had delivered to the front office. When I started talking to one of the office girls, and she showed me an app that she had on her phone that she wanted me to try out. And as she scrolled through the app, showing me how many things she was financing under $50, I couldn't believe it. But of course, I'm a very ignorant person. I don't really I don't really do anything cool or talk to young people or really do a whole lot. So when I see these things that aren't advertised to a person that tries to avoid advertisements, I was kind of, I didn't think much of it. But I went back and I sat down at my desk, and of course, Google was listening. And so it recommended this article in which it showed me the evils of financing a burrito. And with that said, let's get into our monologue for today. They're letting us finance burritos now. Burritos. Like I can't get approved for a mortgage, but Klarna's out here giving me a loan for lunch. And it feels like free money in the moment, but all you're really doing is signing up for debt in disguise and is convenient. I mean, this reminds me a lot of towards the end of my Walmart career, when Walmart became painfully aware that all of its workers would be willing to pay $6 every time that they borrowed from their own paychecks. It was called even. That means that Walmart was trying to get even with you by stealing even more of your tiny minimum wage paycheck. One day, you're breaking up a $15 sushi order into four easy payments, and the next, you're drowning in $600 of forgotten snack debt, wondering where your paycheck went. This actually started happening to me a few years ago when Amazon started doing this. Amazon would finance you just about anything you wanted. I financed a video card, I financed photography equipment, I financed a drone. I was financing so many things until Amazon realized that I wasn't a good credit risk, and that's when that little logo stopped showing up. They stopped letting me finance things because I financed too many things at one time. And so my paychecks were getting tinier and tinier and tinier, and I didn't understand why because it seemed like a great idea, right? Instead of paying all $600 for something you want right now, you pay 100 of it plus tax, and then you're just on the hook for payments for the next half a year. Again, thinking you're getting a deal, but it's not. It's not like layaway used to be at Kmart where you would come in and make payments, and at the end of making those payments, then they would give you the item. This is much worse. This is more evil and sadistic, in my opinion, because they actually give you the item up front, which makes you feel like it's something better to do. When you finance something at Kmart through what was it called? Layaway. It wasn't something that you got right away. You would give them your money under the pretense that someday you would make enough payments to pay off that item. In fact, the first fishing rod I ever bought from for in my entire life, I ended up doing layaway on. And because I was a little kid, it $3 was a lot of money back then, and I think this fishing pole was like $15. And every time I got my allowance, I'd ask my parents to drive me back to Kmart so I could give them another $3. I think it took two or three times before my parents got tired of me asking to be driven back to make tiny payments and they just bought it for me. But I remembered thinking to myself that this was the only way that I could afford to buy something that cost $15 as a little kid. I mean, I was probably 8 or 9 when that happened. But it did show corporations that people were willing to do layaway, but in real time. And with that said, let's get into talking point number one. Buy now, pay later is debt in disguise. Proles can't get out of the way of predatory lending. When you look at the way that corporations fleece the proletariat, it's everywhere. I mentioned this in another video the other day, which you guys are probably going to see in the future, is that everywhere a prole goes, whether it's the pawn shop, It's the payday loan place. It's rent to own furniture. Someone's out there waiting to see how they can take away your money. And unfortunately, because pros aren't good with money because they don't have money. And that's the thing that I don't get. It's like, how are you supposed to be good at finances when the reality is you don't know what you're doing because no one ever taught you how to be good with finances? Also, if you're always living paycheck to paycheck and someone offers you a burrito in 3 easy installments, why would you pay all $15 at once when you can just pay 5 today? See, I mean, that's the mentality behind fleecing the poor. When you think about who your best customers are going to be in this world, it's not that guy who's buying an expensive car and drives a mansion. No, those are the guys looking to see how they can hurt poor people and get even more money out of them. Corporations have one thought in mind: the proletariat has a dollar, and they're going to try to see how much of that dollar they can get while leaving you with as little money in your pocket as humanly possible. I think of this when I look at my car sometimes. When I bought my car from Carvana, I didn't think that it was such a bad idea. But 3 years later, almost to the day, it was a bad idea to finance a car at such a high interest rate. Today, while I was walking through the parking lot at Kroger's, I walked past a car. It was a Prius. It was a 2011 Prius that someone had just bought. And and I looked at it. It's like, who would buy a car? Who would finance a 15-year-old car? Some pro that has no choice. They need to get to work. They can't ride the bus and they need transportation. So they're going to finance something that's that old. Could you imagine if we could finance food that was expired? That's what it felt like when I saw that car sitting in the parking lot. Why would you buy an expired car? Because it's the only thing that pros can afford. When their promobile looks like it's a rolling ball of junk, like the paint's all gone, you got four donuts, a cracked windshields, faded paint or cracked paint, your brakes don't work, the acceleration sucks, but it's the only thing that you can afford. Of course you're going to finance that car. And the people finance giving you the money to finance that car, they're going to laugh at you because chances are that car's never going to make it to you paying it off. If you just financed a car from the year 2011 and 6 year payment, a 6 year payment plan, chances are either the car's going to go or you're going to go, or both of you are going to end up in a fireball on the side of a highway. And that's a true story. My neighbor that used to live across the way from me, he was driving his truck back from somewhere, and he pulled over on the side of the highway, and his truck caught fire, and it melted right there. And when I asked him about his insurance money, he's like, "You really think I could afford insurance on that truck?" I was like, "Oh man, that sucks, dude." Anyhow, he smoked a lot of the devil's lettuce, so regardless, he was still happy. All right, talking point number two: instant gratification is the bait. It bypasses the normal emotional friction we feel when spending money. This is very true. When I used to buy now, pay later with Amazon, it felt amazing to be able to afford things that I couldn't justify buying today because it was just too much money. I could eventually save up to buy something that cost $600, but it would take me months. So the idea of being able to have something that I want right now, like if I could finance a steak right now, would I? Yes. Is it a good idea? No. But that's what instant gratification is. In fact, over the years, I've seen this video, and I know you guys have seen it too. If you're a psychology student, you've seen this as part of psychology, your first year psychology classes, is the marshmallow experiment, in which they bring children into a room and they tell them that if you don't eat that marshmallow by the time that the researcher comes back, you will get two marshmallows. Delayed gratification is something that in human beings is a very good thing. It allows some human beings to delay marriage, delay having children, and possibly delay other milestones in life until you're better prepared, until at least you finish your education. Unfortunately, delayed gratification is not very high in the lower level of the proletariat. The reason why so many of us are trapped in all kinds of predatory lending is because we couldn't pass the marshmallow experiment. We couldn't wait. We had to eat the marshmallow. And for many of us, that marshmallow comes in the form of Susie Rottencrotch. Susie Rottencrotch sits out there behind the Taco Bell, and we know we shouldn't touch Susie. We all know that we'd be better off going home and shaking hands with the governor. But Johnny Sixpack comes around the corner. He's loaded up on Pro beer, feeling good. Susie's assumed the position, and Johnny just has to do one thing to prevent 18 years of pain. Or better yet, prevent my pain, Johnny Sixpack, and don't touch Susie Rottencrotch without you know what. Make certain that you button up down there, or else don't play. Or at least, I tell this to people all the time, if I could go back and tell my dad one sentence, because I never met him, one sentence or one phrase, it would have been pull out. That's all he had to do to prevent the misery of my entire life. Pull out. But no. Johnny Sixpack and delayed gratification are two things that cannot live in the same universe. And that's why there are so many prole children in the world. People tell me all the time what a blessing it is to have children. But I don't think it's a blessing. I think bringing in forced slaves into this world is the true evil. In fact, that's why I put pregnant women into every one of my videos. Because our debt today, especially our national debt, is the responsibility of future proles to pay off. That's why that exists. That's why that is such a prominent source in all of my videos. Because Susie Rottencrotch is doing her national duty by assuming the position. Because if she can't wait until she's in a better financial situation, preferably married to a very wealthy man who's making over $500,000 a year, and can still afford to pay alimony and child support until that child is no longer the responsibility. But no, instead she finds drunken Johnny Sixpack who's got his best swimmers loaded and ready to go, and it happens. We just created another debt slave. It's just the way of the world. Unfortunately, that's just the way that things work. And as much as I rally against this system, I don't think I can put a dent in it. Because delayed gratification among the proletariat means that they are so susceptible to the system that it's almost like you just want to grab the proles and push them out of the way so that they don't get exploited even harder by Evil Corp. Talking point number 3. It's targeting the most vulnerable. Bad credit, tight budget. You're exactly who these companies want. Platforms like Klarna and Afterpay are used mostly by Millennials and Gen Z with extremely low credit and absolutely no savings accounts. When you have to finance a burrito from Chipotle, number one, you're not getting a quality burrito. Number two, when you're done eating it, chances are you're going to get the squirts. And number three, when that next payment shows up, you're going to wonder, was it worth that many trips to the bathroom to eat now and pay later? I'll tell you, as a guy that used to eat Chipotle religiously before my history class at 1 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays, my teacher had to tell me that I needed to stop eating Chipotle because I was disrupting the class by running back and forth to the bathroom. But guess what? It tasted good back then. 10 years ago. Right now, I wouldn't eat at Chipotle even if I was starving. Chipotle is disgusting. In fact, today I saw a list of 16 restaurants that are absolutely disgusting. Between the low quality and extremely high prices, there's no reason why you should ever finance a burrito. It's not worth it. Giving yourself a gut bomb just so that you can enjoy it, or I would even say the nostalgia. I think that's what keeps us coming back. I know that Little Caesar is terrible pizza. It is some of the cheapest pizza that it's ever been made, but it's still out there because they're poor people. And I won't go near it except at the company, at the corporate pizza parties, when it's the right price for the corporation. And you gotta ask yourself, it's like, is this worth it? Because it's one of the greasiest pizzas you will ever put in your pie hole. It doesn't have, I would say that Little Caesar and frozen pizza sit in the same category for me. They're disgusting, they're gross, and they're too expensive for what you get. But as I was reading through this list, and it showed that all fast food is disgusting. It redeemed me because I've been saying this since before the pandemic that the overall quality of our lives, our food, our transportation, and even our relationship with Susie Rottencrotch has been greatly diminished for years. Nobody wants to believe that, but now that you can afterpay a burrito, more people are starting to buy in that this overall quality of our general lives is awful. It's not even worth it to get out of bed in the morning and go sell your labor to Evil Corp. It feels like Evil Corp has become the ultimate buy now, pay later. They buy your labor today, they pay you later, and you get practically nothing out of it. In fact, about half an hour ago, I was at Kroger's, as I mentioned, I'm walking through the parking lot. I go inside, and cashier number one is standing there, and she just looks at me and she says, "Millennials team, I don't want to be here. I can't afford to work here as a cashier." And then she said, "We should all go on strike." And then she adds, "I'd be the only person outside holding a sign because everyone in here really needs this job." And she really needs this job. But standing there at a self checkout for 8 hours, and again, the cruelty of retail in the scheduling is undeniable. The cruelty of forcing someone to close and then forcing them back the next morning to open at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's it's something that should just not be allowed. And I know that I've heard about certain laws, but I don't think I've ever heard any retailer that I've ever worked for that abides for that. And the worst part is that when I worked at Walmart, the general manager who made the schedule acknowledged that closing and opening shifts made people sick. Retail makes people sick. Making minimum wage makes people sick. Having to eat the food makes people sick. Having to be alone all the time because you can't afford to go out and be with people, you can't afford to socialize because you're always working, makes people sick. Every part of being a pro in this world makes you sick. I left work today because I was sick. It was Monday. I could feel like a low fever. And I just decided, you know what? I have sick time. I'm going home. Because it's the job. Its soul crushing nature of Evil Corp makes you feel unwell constantly. I've mentioned this before, but I have the stress stomach aches all the time. My stomach is in knots constantly because, and I will say this, one of my closest work friends today, it was 9:18 this morning when I saw her name come across my desk. She had no idea that they were chopping her off Tanya Harding style across the knees this morning. Her and her lovely assistant and one of the other people that I've worked with for a long time. They all got let go this morning. And she texted me and she told me she was freaking out. And I told her, This is not the corporation for building a career. This is not the corporation where you feel like you have any job safety. No job security whatsoever. That's why my stomach's been in knots for months. And just like Gen Z, who told me this morning, you can't find a better job, we have to stay until the axe drops. She knew she wasn't going to last there. She even told me this morning that she told Evil Corp that I will not let you exploit me for what you're paying. A week later, she doesn't work there anymore. That's amazing how fast that happens when you tell Evil Corp to pull it out of your rear because Fleece Johnson isn't welcome back there anymore. Fleece don't care. It's always the hard way. And believe me, today she felt it the hard way as soon as she got into work. And I'd never seen this happen like this before, but I've been messaging with her all day and she's still like in shock. But you can't be. Every single one of you that's listening to me right now needs to be well aware that this country entered a recession a long time ago. Your job is about as safe as a cookie at a fat kids convention. It's just not going to happen. And you just have to be fully prepared for when it does happen. Because corporate profits have to stay high and people don't matter. And these things happen. Whether or not you like it or not, a layoff can happen at any moment. There's no progressive discipline. That's why they love using layoffs to get rid of people. If you use the word layoff, you don't have to show any sort of disciplinary actions towards that person. You just write layoff and you're gone. Just like that. Anyhow, I had another talking point, but of course I've gone off on many, many tangents today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. You should be watching this, I'm assuming, at around 3 o'clock on Friday. It's Monday afternoon right now. Future me is waiting to see what happens tomorrow because I want to get out of the Roach Motel as quickly as I possibly can.